My name, to say again, for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Rebecca Taylor. I'm the editor of Jewish Renaissance magazine. Welcome to our event tonight, where we're going to be looking at the Jewish history and culture of Argentina. So Argentina is the theme of our event, but it's also the theme of the new summer issue of Jewish Renaissance. So before I talk about Argentina, I'd like to give you a brief taster of what's in our new magazine. It's out now, and if you're a subscriber, you've hopefully got it. And if not, let us know. So I'll just give you a quick whistle-stop tour. This is the cover with a wonderful cartoon of Kafka on it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, so that's the cover of our spring issue. So one of the features I wanted to flag up was this next one. In this issue, we're publishing the winners of our Emerging Journalists Award. So we announced this award last winter following a 6-week journalism program that we held that was open to aspiring journalists, as well as, and then we also had a series of public online lectures. And our tutors and our lecturers included Jonathan Friedland, Hugo Rifkind, Jane Eisner, Anshel Pfeffer, and many others. And it was wonderfully attended and very successful, very interesting. And in this issue, we print the winning essay, which was by Joshua Korber Hoffman. By coincidence, it had an Argentina theme. He focused on the election of the new president, Javier Milei, who has been quite controversial. He's a populist, a champion of all things Jewish, but has caused much division in Argentina, as you might have heard. And in this feature, we also announced the other runners-up. All of them are very talented, and I'm sure we'll be reading more of their work in the future. So that was one feature in the issue. Then going on to this next piece, quite a different piece. It's a powerful article created by written by Peter Watts, who interviews Sherelle Horowitz, an artist and curator in Israel. And it looks at the art that's been created since the 7th of October by Israelis, Israeli artists, and some Palestinian Israeli artists following those attacks. And on the page here, you can see the paintings of Sherelle Horowitz, the artist I mentioned, on the left. And then also the picture surrounded by black is by a Palestinian Israeli artist called Raidon Adon. And then there's also a picture of a calendar art. It's called Calendar, that piece of art, by Mayan Guri. And there's on the other pages, you can see lots of other art that emerged from those awful events. Then going on to our art section. So that was in our features. This is in our art section. We have a wonderful interview by our art critic, Jacqueline Nichols. She speaks to the acclaimed South African artist, William Kentridge, during his visit to the UK. And he speaks really openly in a way which I haven't really heard before about the influence of his Jewish Lithuanian background on his work and identity. That's a lovely piece, and you can see his amazing pictures on the left, and again, going on to other pages after this. So then going into our book section, the piece that I mentioned at the beginning about Franz Kafka. This is to tie in with the centenary of his death that's being marked in June. And in this piece, our writer, David Herman, says that we should let go of our ideas about Kafka as being all to do with the bleakness and the darkness of the world and getting lost in the labyrinthine corridors of bureaucracy. So let go of that. And David, explores new ideas about his work today, which focus on the humor and playfulness. Yes, really. And his fascination with Yiddish culture. So it's a very interesting read. I'd also really like to give a call out to our illustrator, Roberto Majan, who created these really striking and intriguing images that you can see here, and for our cover. And finally, we'll go to our Argentina section. And that begins by following the journey of Jordan Salama, who is one of our guests here today. We follow him as he traces the route that his great-grandfather, who was a merchant from Damascus, made across the Andes about 100 years ago. And you can see there's some amazing photos of his trip, the Andes there, and some of the people he met, and his grandfather in the picture at the bottom, not his great-grandfather. His great-grandfather is in the black and white photo, which is probably a bit small for people to see. So that's just a quick taster of what we've got in the magazine. And it's also a good moment to take us into our event tonight on Argentina. So about a year ago, I was starting to read reports about a controversial politician, Javier Milei, a right-wing populist in the mold of Donald Trump and his neighbor, Jair Bolsonaro. That's Argentina's neighbor, not Donald Trump's. And like them, he was a supporter of Israel, but also a passionate champion of Judaism in general, reading and even getting political advice from the Torah and indicating that he might even convert to Judaism. So I was keen to hear how the country's large Jewish population, which is the largest in South America, might be feeling about this candidate who then became the president earlier this year. And once I started looking into the history of the country, it became very obvious this is a fascinating place. There are so many different Jewish stories, from ones about Jewish cowboys and agricultural farms and collectives that were set up in the 19th century, to a buzzing Yiddish theatre scene. There are Jewish tango musicians, as well as the tragic stories of the Jewish activists who were murdered under the military junta of the 1970s, and also the tragedy of the bombing of the Jewish Community Center, AMIA, in Buenos Aires in 1994. So first of all, to give a feeling of some of the color and atmosphere of these stories we've been covering, we've got a short film for you. And then afterwards, I'll introduce our guests who will talk you through Argentina's interesting stories tonight.
Perdiendo la memoria, ya no sé bien quién está dentro de mí. En algún lugar del mundo me perdí en lo más profundo. Cuando me veas, ayúdame a salir. Solo necesito tu amor es tan fuerte, calma el dolor que siento en el fondo del corazón. Sumo millas, subo fotos, no hay ninguna de nosotros. La distancia también me duele a mí. A 10.000 pies de altura, siento que sube la locura. La tormenta siempre está por venir. Solo necesito tu amor es tan fuerte, calma el dolor que siento en el fondo del corazón. Solo necesito tu amor es tan fuerte, calma el dolor que siento en el fondo del corazón.
Thank you, Emma. I hope that's whet your appetite for the talk that we're going to have now. I think the music is a band that's very popular right at the moment in Argentina. I'm not sure of the name of them, but maybe Jordan, I think he or Javier or Mirta might know the name. I think Jordan was the person who let us know about them. You can tell us in a minute. So to tell us more about Jewish Argentina, I'm delighted that we're joined tonight by the author and journalist Javier Sinay, the writer Jordan Salama, and the artist Mirta Kupferminc. And firstly, we're going to go to Javier Sinay in Buenos Aires. Javier is an author and journalist living in Buenos Aires. He was a correspondent for the Mexican newspaper El Universal and the deputy editor of Rolling Stone magazine for Argentina. His books include The Murders of Moisés-Ville, about a series of murders at the Moisés-Ville Jewish colony, and his latest book, After 9:53 a.m., is about the bombing of the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires in 1994. So welcome, Javier, and you're going to tell us a little bit about some of those themes, I think.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. You could also have put a song from the Rolling Stones, because we are here huge fans of the band. I really didn't know what music was. Maybe Jordan knows better. So I will talk better about my article in this issue, which is the story of the last murder in Moisésville, which happened in October 2015. So Moisésville is, as you can see here, it's an agricultural colony in the middle of the Pampas. That's like 400 miles or 600 kilometers away from Buenos Aires city. It was started as a town of Jewish immigrants that came here from the Tsarist Empire in 1889, and between 1889 and 1906 there were 22 murders that my great-grandfather, who happened to come here in 1894, who was a journalist himself, that's him, Sinay. He wrote kind of a memoir or a piece about those murders when he was 70 years old or something like that in 1947. So he was like remembering what had happened in Moisésville when he was there. He was the son of a rabbi who started a little revolution in town, so they had to go away. So he and some part of the Sinay family came to Buenos Aires city, where he started the first newspaper in Yiddish in Argentina and also in Latin America, that was called Der Wiedercall. That means the echo. So starting with that piece, which was I don't know to say if it was a memoir or just a recalling of those murders. Starting from that point, I have done a new investigation and have finally written a book after 4 years, which was The Murders of Moisésville, and it was published in 2013 in Spanish and 2022 in English. But in 2015, so 2 years after the the edition in Spanish, there was another murder in Moisésville, and that was really strange because Moisésville today is a city, not a city, it's a town with 2,500 population. So imagine it's not common that a murder happens there. So I traveled Moisésville once again after so many trips, and I asked who was the killer, who was the victim, and I don't know if I was very surprised. Maybe I was. The murderer was a man of 77 years old, and the victim, I am reading here in my notes, was a man of 79 years old. So the population of Moisésville is in general very old because young people go away to the cities to look for work or looking for universities or new opportunities. Here we are seeing the cemetery and the tombs of the victims of my great-grandfather's piece. This is the museum that it's in Moisésville, and something that was kind of funny or kind of I don't know which word can I use, but something that I remember still today was when I talked with one of my sources, let's say, who was a man of something like 85 years old. He wasn't surprised at all about the murder, and I told him, everyone called him Inge, which is a nickname in Yiddish, which means boy. So now he was more than 80, but he still was Inge. And I told him, Inge, but you don't look like too much surprised or shocked because of this murder. Why? And nobody looks shocked in town, I told him. And he said, no, here we are all most of the population in Moisésville, we are older than 80 years old, and we have seen it all here in this little town. So I think that was something very, very interesting because of this this thing that now I am thinking that you can compare with El Aleph, the Aleph, you know, that short piece by the great writer Borges, the great Argentine writer Borges, which is about a single point in space, like a single point which is hidden in a house that contains the whole universe. So I won't say that the whole universe is contained in Moisésville, but Moisésville is a little town that contains many, many things. So for example, maybe you remember this terrorist attack on the Jewish community center AMIA in Buenos Aires in 1994. I wasn't able to look for some records or documents about the murders of Moisésville because they have been destroyed in the attack. So I have to look for sources and documents and old books in Yiddish in different places, like for example Tzedek or Tzedakah. You can say it both ways, which is something like the Salvation Army, but Jewish here. And there are many, many books in Yiddish, old books. So this is the judiciary summary of the attack. I am working on a book. Well, I have finished the book. It's going to be printed in July about the attack. And this is the Ivo, which is, maybe you know the Ivo in New York. This is the Ivo in Buenos Aires. It's the same place. It's like a library and a cultural center which focus on Yiddish culture and books. And we spell it IWO. In New York, they spell it YIVO, but anyway, it's a transliteration thing. So this is the Kadima Theater, which is a 400-seat theater in Moisésville. So as you can see in Moisésville, which is, and again I say, which is a little town, there was a very rich and very deep Jewish life since 1889, maybe until the 40s or the 50s for sure. And probably we can say until the 60s. Then the people went away, the sons and the grandsons and daughters and granddaughters went away to the big cities. And today Moisésville is, as you can see here, it's like a little cozy town with only 115 Jews. And the total population is 2,500. But as Inge told me, remember Inge, my source, as he told me, he said, the Jews still make the decisions on the most important things. So it's a town in the middle of the Pampas, where soy is like the green gold, is the thing that brings the money today, and Moisésville is in that area. So once the fields of Moisésville were, this is Inge, once the fields of Moisésville were with corn and classical vegetables, today you can see mostly soy, and that's it. So it's a great place if you come to Argentina and you want to see some of the Jewish local history. It's a great place to go.
Javier, can you mention Baron de Hirsch? Because I think some people might not know the history of how Jews came to be there, which is interesting. Very briefly,
yeah,
we're running over time.
Yeah, I miss it. Emma, can we go up to Baron de Hirsch? More.
It was just a black and white photo of Baron de Hirsch.
So this man was Baron Maurice de Hirsch. He was a banker and a millionaire and a philanthropist in the 19th century in Europe. He moved between France, Belgium, Germany, and he had the idea of moving the poor Jewish people from the Tsarist Empire to America, and not to Israel, which was the idea of Baron Baron de Rothschild or Baron Rothschild, because in my opinion it is very interesting, because he made some kind of geopolitical strategy that was like this. The Tsarist Empire is in tension with the Ottoman Empire, and Israel and Jerusalem were in the Ottoman Empire. So what happens if one day the Tsarist Empire and the Ottoman Empire are in war, and the Tsarist Empire conquers the Ottoman Empire? So in fact, it will conquer Jerusalem and Israel. So what will happen if we move people from, let's say, current Ukraine or current Lithuania to Israel, and then the Tsarist troops and the Cossacks come to Jerusalem and Israel? It makes no sense. So that was his geopolitical analysis. So he says, let's move people to America. Of course, the first destination or the first desire was the United States, but by 1890, which was the year when he started this Jewish Colonization Association, the United States were not really open to new migration, and at the same time Argentina was very open because it was like an empty country, and after civil wars and after 80 years of independence and 80 years of discussing which kind of country we wanted to be, in 1890 there was like a liberal government that wanted to bring European migration to civilize, to bring civilization to the lands here. So as I said, the lands were quite empty, but of course there were indigenous people and gauchos, which were like some kind of cowboys. So they thought, the government thought that the Europeans will civilize the place. That idea today sounds a little conflictive, I can say, or a little difficult to accept. But anyway, it was the ideas of the time. So they have free ship tickets for French people, Swiss people, Italian people, German people. I'm sorry, not English people, not too much, and also not too much, but some Russian Jewish people who came with these free ship tickets to Moisés Ville. So the government of Argentina and Barón de Hirsch agreed in moving these people. So he bought the lands in Santa Fe province, which I said is like 400 miles or 600 kilometers away from Buenos Aires, and he sell these lands to the immigrants in a very cheap price, because he had the idea of making these people productive people. So they had to pay, and with the money, the association would be able to buy more land for more people to bring from Russia.
Thank
so
you.
Why? Okay.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Javier. I think we're going to have to move on, but that was a really good
Okay, yeah.
explanation of how people got there. So just because I'm conscious of time, so if that's okay, we'll leave it there. But I think we've got a good idea of how people came to be in these settlements, also in Brazil and other places in South America, doing things that may be unexpected, such as being cowboys and ranchers and agriculturalists. But thank you very much. That was a very interesting background to a particular part of Jewish life in Argentina. Thank you. Let's move on now to Jordan Salama. So Jordan, who is actually looking at, as I said, there are many different stories of Jewish Argentina, which is why it is very interesting. So this was the largely Russian immigrant settlements, and Jordan's going to talk about a different community, the Sephardi community. And let me tell you a bit about Jordan. First of all, Jordan is the author of Stranger in the Desert, which tells the story of his journey across the Andes in the footsteps of his great-grandfather, a Syrian trader from Damascus. His 2021 book, Every Day the River Changes, chronicles his almost 1,000-mile trip down the Rio Magdalena River in Colombia. And he's also written for National Geographic and the New York Times, among many other publications. He's also a video producer, and he runs a children's educational YouTube channel that has over 1 million subscribers. So a man of many talents. Hello, Jordan.
Hi.
Welcome to our event.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you so much. And I think that there's going to be some photos running in the background while I speak briefly about my contribution to this beautiful issue of Jewish Renaissance. I'm just really grateful to be part of it. I was not born in Argentina. I was born in New York. But this project, my book, Stranger in the Desert, and the work that the story that I tell in Jewish Renaissance kind of tells the story of my reclamation and rediscovery of my own family's past. And in the past few months, I've kind of been traveling around the United States and giving talks like this about the importance of kind of asking our families questions and having the opportunity to do intergenerational storytelling so that we can appreciate where our families come from. So I was born in the United States, but my family comes entirely from Arabic-speaking Jewish communities. My mom was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and she left in the 1970s, part of the last Jewish families to leave Iraq for the United States. And my father's family went from Syria, from Damascus and Aleppo, to Argentina at the turn of the 20th century. So if Javier's presentation talks about the mid to late 19th century migration of Jewish refugees from Eastern Europe at the help of Baron de Hirsch, this was a couple of decades later when, spurred on by economic collapse and the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Jews from places that are today like Syria, Lebanon, Turkey, ended up in South America as well. So my family, my great-grandfather was a man named Selim Salama. And when he arrived in Buenos Aires, he actually went west to another city in Argentina called Mendoza, which some of you might have heard of because it's famous for its Malbec wine. At the time, though, that part of the Andes was pretty unpopular. I mean, it was pretty sparse. Obviously, there were indigenous communities, and there were people, much like in Javier's stories, gauchos, pastoralists, people angling for a place in an ever modernizing and globalizing world. And many Syrian Jewish and Syrian Christian migrants to the country went out to work in this kind of very harsh and hostile high desert landscape to work as traveling salesmen. And that's the story that I'm here to share today. So they would, with their horse-drawn carts, go up and down the Andes Mountains, sometimes go away for 2 or 3 months at a time, selling largely textiles, but also cotton clothes and other goods, kind of modern goods that were available in places like Buenos Aires, but less accessible for communities in the Andes. And this follows, I think, a long tradition of Jewish people around the world, largely disenfranchised Jewish people around the world, working as traveling merchants because it was one of the only options that they had in certain economies. In the Ottoman Empire, in Syria, in Iraq, all of my ancestors worked as traders on the old Silk Road. And when they got to Argentina, when they got to Mexico, when they got to Colombia and Venezuela, they worked in the same way. They did what they knew, which was traveling and trading, traveling and trading. And today I like to think that as my work kind of telling stories about the world for publications like National Geographic, I travel and trade in stories. So that's me in the Andes Mountains. And to give it just a little brief sense about how this started, it all began when here in New York, in a town called Peekskill, about an hour north of New York City, I stumbled across a very thick binder about this big in my grandfather's basement. And it was just labeled in Spanish, Historia Antigua, which means the ancient history. It had a hodgepodge of old papers and photographs and letters and magazine articles and snippets from books and maps and all sorts of things. And when I opened it up, the first few pages chronicled 500 years of our family's migratory history. So reading this first in secret, and then when my grandfather found out that I discovered his book with him in Spanish, Abuelo Moisés Salama was born in Argentina but left in the 1960s for New York. We discovered the story together of my great-grandfather, the traveling salesman, and a few rumors and mysteries that surrounded the way he worked. And so I went looking for traces of him all across the Andes, staying with the descendants of both Jewish and Christian Syrian traveling salespeople, and asking questions about what it means to be Argentine, what it means to be Middle Eastern, and what it means to be Jewish, and what it means to be American in a kind of ever-changing world of fused ethnic and religious identities. So that's a kind of summary of what I've been working on. And just to add, and I know that my time, we're in the essence of time here. I want to hand over the reins to Mirta, but the song that we heard at the beginning was one of the new songs from a band called Conociendo Rusia, which is one of the more popular rock bands in Argentina today. And the leader of that band is a guy named Mateusz Suchatovic, who's Jewish. So it was fun to hear one of their newest songs as the soundtrack to the montage. And the last thing that I'll say before I kind of hand it over is that whether it's in the Andes Mountains, whether it's in the Pampas of Moisésville, or whether it's in the kind of very vibrant present day Jewish community in Buenos Aires, which is one of the largest and most beautiful Jewish communities in the world, I think it's a really important thing for us to think about these Jewish heritages and cultures in Latin America, which is a place that I think the rest of the world doesn't often think of Jewish life when they think of Latin America. And the more we can lean into these stories and histories, the more people like Javier and Mirta and all of my friends and family who still live in Argentina can feel welcomed in the global Jewish community, but also people like us, me, who even live in diaspora from Argentina, can feel like that our identities belong when we're both Latin American and Sephardic or Mizrahi or Arab Jewish, that we belong in kind of the global Jewish world, and that our stories are on the shelves of Jewish literature, which was what excited me so much when I found my grandfather's Historia Antigua. So in the spirit of all of this and the importance of sharing these stories and intergenerational storytelling, I'm going to share something in the chat. It's the last thing that I'll say, which is what I call the guest book. And at all of my events talking about this work over the past few months, I've actually passed around a physical book where I ask people to inscribe their name and their family's heritage in the hopes of putting together a kind of global Jewish community of people who are encouraged to explore their family's past. Eventually, my hope is to connect people based on their heritages so that people can meet others around the world who have similar backgrounds and share stories about their diversities in the Jewish community and the Jewish experience. So that's there. If people want to join that community, you can click on that link to join the virtual guest book. Thank you very much. And I look forward to answering your questions at the end.
Thank you, Jordan. What a lovely idea. And that is absolutely in keeping with us here at Jewish Renaissance, who cover the diaspora community around the world. And I'd love to hear what emerges from your guest book. Do sign that for Jordan. And also, that's a good chance for me to remind people that we are taking Q&As from our audience, from you in the audience, for all of our guests. So please send in your questions and we can go to you after we've finished hearing from all of our speakers. So thank you, Jordan. What a remarkable find that must have been to find your grandfather's account of his family history. Okay, now we'll go on back to Argentina, to Mirta Kupferminc in Buenos Aires also, I think. So Mirta is an artist.
Thank you. Thank you.
Buenos Aires. I'll just give you a brief introduction, Mirta. Her work covers a wide sweep, taking in Kabbalah, feminism, and the legacy of the Holocaust. And in 2012, she was awarded the National Prize, which is the highest artistic distinction in Argentina. She says all her work has a Jewish connection, and that is most obvious in works such as In the Skin of Memory, which explores the relationship between decorative tattoos and the numbers tattooed onto her parents' arms at Auschwitz. And there are other works she's done involving Israeli and Jewish writers, which has also looked at memory. She has also created a memorial for the victims of the 1994 bombing of the Jewish Community Center, and that memorial is located next to the Palace of Justice in Buenos Aires. So we'll go to Mirta now, who's going to tell us a bit more about herself and her art and about being Jewish in Argentina.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Emma, and to all of you, and the honor to be here tonight. Well, okay. I am a visual artist, and I will speak, if you don't mind, to have more time showing some images while I am speaking, because if I speak about myself, the images are myself. I have a completely self-portrait work. I am the daughter of survival parents, my mother from Hungary, my father from Poland. Please, Emma, to the next one we go. Thank you. So, although I was born in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, and I always lived here, I have always the feeling that I am stable, but I am not only from Argentina. So in this image that you can very easily see people carrying their trees, their heritage, perhaps their dreams, their cities. You can perceive perhaps Europe on my right, on your right, yes, in the screen, and in your left, on your left, the image of the port in Buenos Aires. This image has turned to be completely iconic in my work. I think that now I could make an exhibition only based on different versions of this image. I think it's the image I made that is more reproduced in different versions. I repeat, in many books and posters and etc. Okay, we can go to the next one. And I must say that many people, when they see this image, the first one or this one, they think about my ancestors or my parents that came to Argentina. But no, I did this image of the people going with the trees when in year 2001, many young people from Argentina, we had then one of our crises. We are very expert with crisis. So then where two stepdaughters of mine also went to live away from Argentina, looking for a better future. One is in Israel, the other one in New York. For me, it was like a kind of heartbreaking because, of course, their grandparents came to Argentina as all our predecessors who came here looking also for a better life. So it was like shocking. And this image resembles, I'm sure some of you know or have heard about kintsugi. I will shortly explain. Kintsugi is a Japanese technique and philosophy from the 1300s. It's hard for me to translate numbers, but you will understand. We are with the concept that, gracias Javier, the concept that when a vessel, a ceramic vessel is broken, it should not be fixed trying to hide the broken pieces, but instead that the marks of where the brokenness appeared shows its story. And I feel that also with this and in our life, it has not exact the shape, the quarter is not perfect, but I think that we should not and we cannot, and I as a daughter, I cannot and I don't want to hide the story, the pain, the suffering of my parents. I always say that the most important thing that happened to me occurred before I was born. So the story of the Holocaust marks all my story. And I must say that after October 7, it's very hard for me as an artist to place myself in the story, because I consider myself, and I am considered a memory artist. Now, with October 7, I cannot work still with that. It's too fresh for me, but something it's moving. Something has moved already. Okay, please to the next one, Emma. This is another example of another version. In this photo, a little piece of this photo that is included in this image is the one with less hair up, is my father when he was a little boy in Poland. They were all the 7 siblings climbing a tree. It's a beautiful photo that I think it was, I didn't know, but now, after looking my own work, I realize, or I think that perhaps all the story of the people carrying trees was born looking at this photo. I must say something. When my parents arrived in Argentina, they had only their clothes. They came as refugees in clandestinity. I was raised in a house without no photos, no images, nothing about a grandfather, a grandmother. All the photos were collected and researched during life. So I think also that perhaps I am an artist because I had no images at home and I had to invent the faces of my family and grandparents. I used to pick up photos from strangers in the street and I put it in portraits, just trying to imagine faces of relatives. Please to the next one. This is another version. This, in the upper part, you see the image that you already know. And the title is "Behind Every Exile There is a Monster." And this is not a poetic title. It's not with poetry, but it is just literal. What is appearing in my image? Okay, it's just literal because if you turn back this object, it is a 3-dimensional object, you see this monster in the back, because usually nobody lives if everything is flourishing. Another way I could have titled this work is Roots and Branches, because this brown, it is a root. And I made the water as following the shape of the root, and well, the branches, you know. Okay, we can continue. Thank you, Emma. Well, this is another image that belongs to a site-specific installation, very big, that is called Traduttore Traditori. It's a saying that in Italian means that every translation is somehow a betrayal. This was installed in the Jerusalem Biennale some years ago in the English prison. And it is all handmade on a kind of rubber that I prepare and here in my studio. And it's all, I write in the opposite on one side, and I cut with a knife, how to say, well, what's in surgery you use, so very fine cut. Jordan knows, it's the expert here. Thank you, I saw your face. Yes, Kelper, thank you, thank you. I want to work always with you, Jordan. Okay, so everything is hand cut 3 years. It has Hebrew letters, but also letters or characters of 70 alphabets. And why 70? Here I take the story of the Tower of Babel, biblical story, where it is said that 70 languages were created. You know, when people, perhaps you know the story, people wanted to reach the sky to see the world from a divine perspective. God didn't want that, so he created the different languages, and it is said it were 70. And the 70 comes because one of the sons of Noé had 70 sons, it is said, and each one was the ancestor of a nation. So when you enter this installation in Jerusalem, you heard first, also Babel comes with confusion. Afterwards, sorry, if you put my name in Google, you will reach very easily my site and you can find a lot of information of my works. So first you entered and you heard a greeting in 56 languages. That is from Carl Sagan, the Golden Records, that is around the world going in orbit. But when you reach the center of the installation, the sounds began to get confusing, and this has also to, is what I wanted about the confusion of the languages. Please, the next one. Thank you. Well, this is another piece made with this kind of work also. This was presented here in Argentina and also in Spain, in Santander, but also here recently in Buenos Aires, en la Bienal de Arte Sacro, sacred art organized by the church. I still do not understand exactly why I was chosen, but it was very nice for me. And it is titled An Altar for Altar. Altar as the other, as otherness, the other, with the same concept of the Tower of Babel, etc., etc. Please, the next one. Here you see the Tower of Babel, and this was hanging with all the letters, also without the sound, but on the walls it appeared the text of the biblical text of Babel in 70 very good researched translations. Please, the next one. Well, and here it was already named the monument monument for the AMIA attack that is in front of the Palace of Justice. This was made immediately. I was asked with, and I called architect and artist also Andres Segal. We worked together because I was not used to make pieces to be outdoors. So I wanted to be sure that this would stay there. So the names are vertical because still the cause is not solved. So the deaths cannot rest in peace. The base is round, marking the hour where the bomb exploded. The shape is like a book, open book, that if you follow visually, you imagine the lines, it embraces the Justice Palace. And if you see from the palace to the opposite, it goes like a flecha, Jordan, flecha. How do you say? Arrow, yes, I forgot. Thank you. Okay. So, but this was moved. Many changes, political changes and legal, and what Argentina, has. It was moved from its place. Also, the base originally was not, it was like floating, not on the base, also marking that the death cannot rest in peace. But now it's on the floor, but it's better that it is there. Please, to the next one. Well, and this, do I have time, Rebecca? Some minutes?
Yes, please continue. I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you. So this is actually a very big piece, 3.5 meters, that it was exhibited in the Hood Museum in an exhibition in Vermont that was called School Photos and Their Afterlives. And I was invited taking lodge photo. This photo, very famous photo, perhaps you recognize, are the children in the Lodge ghetto in front of their school waiting for their food. But what I made also is a tribute to Mendel Grossman. Mendel Grossman, look the vertical one, because the secret is in the other one. So in the vertical, I make the comparison, the tension between two photos. One, the photos taken by Mendel Grossman, that he was a Jewish prisoner, that he took photos, the photos that the Nazis asked him to take, but also a clandestine photographs. He made a hole in his pocket where he hid his camera, and he used the cover of the camera in his neck. He was allowed, but the clandestine photos he took from his pocket. So this is a tension between two photographers, Walter Genevine, that he was working, he was a Nazi, the accountant of the ghetto. I represented him without a face as a camera in position of power. And this back, like a phantom, a kind of transparent, is my imagination, Mendel Grossman, that is not completely in the image. Walter Genevine was not interested in the boys. He was interested, he was an amateur photographer, and he was interested of experimenting the new ACFA films that were appearing in color. So trying with ideology, trying to imagine with the question, what were the children of the photo looking at? Sorry, I want to say that all this project was born working with Marianne Hirsch and Leo Spitzer, that they are from Columbia University and, well, academics in New York, and they were the curators of the exhibition. And Marianne Hirsch is who created the word post-memory. Okay, so what were these boys looking at? So if you look at the other piece of photo, you will see like a magnifier in the shine of the lens of Genevine in the big piece. You will find this face, Mendel Grossman face, that this, I don't know if Emma, you can, I'm blown, oh, thank you. I don't know, Emma, if you can point with, yes, yes, Emma, please, the face. Thank you, yes. So you will find it, it's very usual in my works that, and this is a Kabbalistic concept, that not everything what is on site is what it is. There is always more to find. These are for you also, young researchers. You have always more to find depending on how much you put of yourself in something. This is a Kabbalistic work with which I identify a lot. Please, the next one, Emma. Thank you. And this image is called, it's very this theme, Renaissance magazine film, is all of them with me. Again, this, you know already, all the boys with the tree. Here is the photo when we got it. And there are, it's me, it's also very big, 3.5 meters. It's me as a little girl in school, the photo in school with the tree, carrying the tree, because I always felt, that I am carrying my family everywhere because I felt different. The Spanish that my parents talked at home was completely different from the Spanish I heard at school or in the streets. The foods were different, the uses were different, everything was different. I don't know if it appears in the PowerPoint, the photos up, in the very, very upper part, there are 2 photos. Yes, more up. Yes. Well, you can, okay, Villa Lodge. Villa Lodge, it was the name of a country that an immigrant had also from Lodge, and they are all dressed as gauchos, but they named that new place in Argentina, in Bransen, Coronel Bransen, Villa Lodge. So this is really the feeling of immigration. And please click it. Yes, this the dot, grain, I don't know, mancha en la pared, humidity. I put this is inside the artwork, but I made this because this is something that I have in my wall, in my studio, and I wanted to bring this image to the here and now. So it is the past and the present all together. Thank you. The next one, if we have time. Okay. So this is a very, very my last work that is titled The Broken House. I made, these are all eyes of people. This is in lithography made, and the first paragraph of the article of the human rights that says that all people should live in dignity and friendship with a loving blah, blah, blah. And it's really only blah, 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 blah. So it's faces and mirrors, perhaps you can see. And in the back, in the lower part, after 7 October, I splashed this blue because I felt that all this work that I was during 1 year and a half, everything is a lie. That the article is not, and the institutions that care for human rights and for peace in the world are not working, and that I felt that my own work is a lie. That's why I made this. So perhaps if we go to the next one. Here you see, and it is all it's behind the window. That's why you see the reflection, but it is the text, the first article in many languages translated. So it took a big research also. They are not the faces of the hostages, are faces of people of all ethnicities from all the world. Please, the next one. And this is the last one in the PowerPoint. Is just to mark once again my interest as an artist on migrations, not only immigration, migration. So this is a piece, this is also lithography and mixed technique. If someone here is interested in techniques, I work with many. I am a very multidisciplinary artist. So this is also very big. It's a piece of land in the middle of nowhere, with a house in the middle of nowhere. With the gold, I try to represent what was lost or what is the hope. And this kind of net that you see, that it should be a containing net, it is also made by the first article of human rights translated to contemporary nowadays migrants. So this is everything for today, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mirta, for your beautiful and moving and powerful work. Thank you very much. And I was fascinated by that picture of Lodz, the photo that you showed us, and how it had been transplanted really into an Argentinian landscape of really fascinating thoughts about migration and immigration. So we have a little bit of time. We don't have very long. I'm aware we've got a couple of questions, one for Javier. Can we go to Naomi? Naomi, would you like to ask your question to Javier? I think it's to do with Polish in Moisésville, the Polish community, is that right?
Well, not so much. It's actually the women who were brought under the false pretenses of finding husbands. And there was a community in Buenos Aires, but they were in actual fact, they were brought under false pretenses because they were unfortunately forced into prostitution. And this in Buenos Aires, for example, there was a section of the cemetery, Jewish cemeteries, where they were buried. There was a lot of stigma attached to it. And I wondered whether that community of Polacas actually got as far as Moisésville.
Thank you, Naomi, for your question. I think the answer is no, because I think that was mostly an urban tendency or an urban situation, and it didn't happen so much in the colonies.
I wondered whether that was a reason for the murders that might have been contributed to the murders that went on, because
no,
there was a section of the community in Buenos Aires, certainly, and I believe the other towns, where the Jews were part of the criminal classes.
Yeah, but that happened more in Rosario, which is close to Moisésville. The murders happened most of all because of they were committed by rural bandits, and it was like thieving and killing, and maybe there was, not maybe, but surely there was a lot of xenophobia in that time of bringing people from Europe. So it was like another phenomenon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. So you were talking about this sex trafficking that happened in the 19th and early 20th century.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mirta or Jordan have anything else to add to that.
Well, the Three Migdal was very important and quite unique in Brazil and also here. And there is a book, La Polaca, written by Mirta Shalom, where you can find a lot of information about that. La Polaca, I'm sure it's translated.
Maybe we can put it on our chat so people can read about that.
Yes.
Jordan, anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, they said it all.
Okay, thank you. Yes, quite a dark period in the history of immigration to Argentina. Okay, and Jay Prosser. Jay, would you like to ask your question? If we can keep it fairly brief.
Yes, I was really blown away by Mirta's, well, it's been a really great evening, but blown away in particular by Mirta's presentation. And I wonder at what point in your creative practice, your decisions about what medium to work with are made. Do you begin with the concept and the medium together, or does the medium emerge as you work on the concept and the practice?
Thank you, Jay, for your question. Well, I was shaped because I studied a lot very formally, and I studied painting and printmaking. So I'm very, very developed with printmaking, that it has a lot of techniques. But I am very curious, and I always made also videos and many other things where I work with someone that is expert in the technique. So I'm very used to work with someone else. The point is that perhaps because my parents are immigrants, I don't like frontiers. And when I imagine a project, some are born that are better to be a big mural in crystal, for example, that I was invited to make something very big here in a hotel, but I never carved crystal with a machine, so I looked for that. So I am very courageous, and some techniques I'm not interested. I don't feel yet to be doing a sculpture like this with marble. I don't feel attracted by, but with the very many concepts of printmaking that I have, I mix everything a lot. I don't know if I answered. Did I?
I think that sounded pretty good. Thank
That was
you.
a wonderful answer. Yeah, I love the idea of courageous frontier crossing. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a very quick question for Jordan. Jordan, will you be going back to Argentina in your writing and uncovering of your family history? Are there other things that you want to find out?
Always, of course. Well, so since I started, when I found the old book that led me to the Andes, that was in 2017. And since then, I've been going back to Argentina almost every year, with the exception of the pandemic. Now I spend several months out of the year living and working in Buenos Aires because I write about Latin America, and I write about Latin American communities in the United States. And so I think talking about frontiers and bridging hemispheres and languages, that's the biggest impact that this project has had on my life, is that I speak Spanish half, if not more than half of the time, and I have deep roots and deep relationships in Argentina. So this story is just beginning for me.
Okay, and I think maybe it's just beginning for lots of us who didn't know much about Argentina before we tuned in tonight. So thank you for getting us started on that journey, all of you, Mirta, Jordan and Javier. It's been a really interesting, fascinating insight into the many different aspects of Argentinian Jewish history. So thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you to our lovely audience for your questions. And we're going to hear very briefly from Emma now before we go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for those amazing presentations, all so varied. And thank you as well for your contributions to the magazine, which really are wonderful. So if you haven't had a chance yet to read, make sure that it's a great issue. So make sure you read the passport section, but obviously you want to be reading it cover to cover as well. And coming up, we have quite a lot of events this summer. The next one will be on the 23rd of May. Very different kind of event. We have Rabbi Rafi Zaram, who some of you may know as the Dean of the London School of Jewish Studies, and Rabbi Daniel Ruttenberg, who is an American rabbi, who they both have award-winning books out about grappling with Jewish practice and heritage and law in the modern world. So we will be joining them in conversation on the 23rd of May. And then in June, we will be starting a series about Jewish arts and culture in Paris, kind of spanning the period between the Dreyfus Affair and the Vichy government. So a very positive period in Jewish history in France. And this will be an art series, and that will launch with an exciting in-person event, which is a private view of the new 150 Years of Impressionism exhibition at the Stern Pissarro Gallery. The exhibition is going to be fantastic. It looks amazing already. They're just putting it together. And we've got this exclusive opportunity to see it as a small group and have a talk by David Stern, the owner and curator himself. So do book for that. And the last plug is that spaces are still available on our Modern Art in the Midlands tour, which will take in some private tours of the Walsall Gallery, the Leicester Museum and Gallery, and a private stop off at a church in Northampton that has both Henry Moore and Graham Sutherland artwork. So if you're interested in modern art and you'd like to join us for a couple of days in the Midlands, do get booking. I'm just going to put a link to our events page in the chat where you will be able to see everything. So thanks again to all of our speakers, and I hope to see you all at future events as well. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.